as an economy, to get back on track, we need to raise government spending. And we need to understand why. As a result, savings went all the way down. And I had a friend here, Balton, who tells me about, his vacations to the Caribbean. I'm kidding. But folks, some of us took vacations on this easy money that we are still paying off on our credit cards. That was part of the consumption out of balance. That was not investment. So we have nothing to show for it. But the debt is real and we have to pay for it. And you can see a corollary at the macroeconomy as well. So what to do? We know consumer spending has to go down. Excuse me. Consumer spending has to go down because long term, that's the correction we need. Short term, we can't even afford to spend because home prices are down, stock market values are down. So the wherewithal to spend is gone. So both short term and long term, we know that's coming down. Now this is the GDP equation. Trade imbalances show that that is also negative. So we can't see any growth from there. We will have to see substantial improvement in exports to see that. But we are in a global recession. It's very unique. Don't let people talk to you about learning from the past. Yes, we can. But this is a very unique situation as well. So there are a lot of things about this recession that we are still assessing and dealing with until we know the full assessment, the full solutions can come up. And actually, it's hitting the rest of the world, or at least the rest of the industrialized world, much harder than the US. So, our leadership role is still there, and we will have to show it and demonstrate it. Investment should typically be up, but we can only invest with our savings, and since savings are in the tank, investment are down. The only way left in the equation to hold GDP together, or at least to avoid a rather drastic fall or plunge in GDP, is by increasing government spending. But we've seen that that's necessary long term because it went out of whack. The results are our aging infrastructure, crumbling roads, terrible schools, both in programs and the buildings themselves. And since this is an MPU session, I want to thank all the engineers in this country, because if it hadn't been for them and the transportation planners, we would be in deeper trouble than we are now. You can see I use a euphemism there. But just imagine if you're crossing a bridge and instead of just having the name of the stream or river on the sign, if you were told also the design life of the bridge. When the build was built, which will tell you the age, I'm willing to bet many of us will not be crossing bridges. But our engineers have made it possible, so thanks to them. For the long-term correction, we know we have to get consumption right, we have to get savings right, and we have to get tax policy right. And only government spending can help us out of this. The focus has to be short-term recovery and long-term investment. So I think the stimulus bill was appropriately named as ARA. Nationwide, we are expecting a contraction of about 2.5. Some have seen some as dire as 3.2% in GDP. But this is from IHS Global Insights, who we subscribe to. We don't agree with the whole forecast, and I'll tell you where we came from. You can see domestic demand will fall. This is why the auto companies are really hurting, and there's been some forecast of about 9.5 million units, as opposed to the 10.3 that you see there. So things are not good. Trade is also not going to be that good, and government spending will increase even by just 1.4%. We need slightly more than that. And I'll explain in a second why I personally believe, and so do many economists, by the way, that the stimulus package was half what it should have been. Its goal was to save or create, we all know it's heavily on the savings side, not the creation side, but save 3.5 million jobs. To date, we've lost 4.4 million jobs. If this forecast is right, the target should have been 7 million jobs, not 3.5 million. But maybe 7 million is not politically feasible, so I'll take half of those any day. We disagree with their oil forecast here. We think it should be around 45 to $55 a barrel for average for this year. But you can see an interesting thing happening here. The dollar strengthens and then falls slightly next year. And the dollar strengthens because this country is the safest country from the perspective of the rest of the world. We have laws and enforcement of laws. I'll give you an example. Italy is an industrialized country, but its leader changed the laws so that when he gets out of power, he cannot be indicted for crimes that he knows he has committed. That doesn't happen in this country. It's not easy to do that because our Constitution makes it so. So guess what? When the rest of the world is feeling skittish, hey, US, where have you been? We need you to play your leadership role. And it's true, we are the worst leaders on several fronts. Several fronts. We may be the youngest industrialized country, but we've advanced so far. And I'll say again, Birmingham, so one of the little dirty secrets about old Europe is they really envy how far we've come with civil rights, racial issues, immigration issues. If you read the international news, you'll know that they are still struggling with some of these issues in old Europe. So we are a leader, and we have to be across to maintain our status. Okay, now I'm going to try to be really quick so I can fit the time slot that I've been given. Bottom line here, Alabama in this decade has done so much better than at any other time in its history. The US, on the other hand, this has been its worst decade out of the last 5 as far as the data that I was looking at showed. So there's a flip. Alabama has many positives going forward, and these are just a few. For me, the most important thing is the population is still increasing. The economy is about us. So if we have a population growing, that's a good thing. We have challenges yet. Unemployment is below the US rate, and we think it will be below the US rate for a while. You know, we've been producing so many autos now in a short span, and even with the 2008 drop, we produced about 670,000 units. We are 5th in amongst the states, behind Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Missouri. Exports growing. Last year's exports rose by 10%, even despite the slowdown in the 4th quarter. So, the interesting thing, however, is if you look at it from 2002 to 2007, you see that China is the fastest growing. Okay. There's a flip in Canada and Germany, Canada. But China is our fastest growing destination. However, last year, Mexico overtook China to come to 3rd place. A 10% rise. Transportation still our biggest, and Germany remaining the largest destination. Population still growing. Typically, we've been growing way below the US rate, but we've been growing, and actually you can see that for 2006, we even surpassed the US. Now, given some of the data that we look at, it makes us question what the census estimates are. But